In the next group of videos, I want to introduce you to PowerShell. Now, the big question is, what exactly is PowerShell? And it is a command line administration tool, but here's the kicker. This thing is on some serious steroids. Okay, now PowerShell is going to fall into one of two categories for you. Okay, one thing that has happened to administration over the last few years, it used to be that an administrator was one of those guys who sat in the dark room near the servers and they dealt with network issues, cables, routers, network connectivity, running certain tasks on the server and so forth. And then they started getting into scripting. And now scripting has turned into almost full-blown development. A lot of administrators are really getting into some serious scripting and even development, and PowerShell is going to usher in a total new era on that. Now understand something. PowerShell is not something you just kind of turn on and point and click. PowerShell is really almost a development environment for administrators, for scripters. Now, the more you understand about development, the more you're going to get out of this thing. And we'll talk about why in just a few minutes. In essence, PowerShell is a command line shell with its own scripting language built in. Now, the scripting language that's built in are called commandlets. Okay, and so there's like 129 of these, I think, that ship with PowerShell 1.0. And let me kind of back up here and tell you, PowerShell has all indications of looking like it's going to be absolutely huge. I will tell you that Microsoft considers PowerShell to be the main tool that's going to be used to administer Windows operating systems on the server for the foreseeable future. Now, this is something you're going to have to stop wasting that time between midnight and 4 every night that you're wasting right now. You know what I mean? This is going to take some time and some serious effort to learn, but it's going to be very well worth it. It is really going to separate really large-scale, serious administrators from everybody else. Okay, now some people may disagree with that. Don't send me hate mail or anything, but just trust me. There's going to be so many things you can do with this, and you'll see it as we go through these videos. So anyway, you have these commandlets, and these are kind of the framework of this thing, and we use these commandlets to invoke all kinds of other things. Okay, you're also going to hear PowerShell referred to as MSH, or the Microsoft Shell. Now, here's the cool thing. It's compatible with languages like C++, C#, JavaScript, VBScript. The bottom line is any language for which an interpreter has been written. Okay? Now, you figure out how many that is. So you can write in almost any language out there, and you can get all kind of cool stuff to happen. Now, what can I do with PowerShell? Here's where the real ability comes in, and this is your opportunity to learn, if you will. Okay, lots to read and learn here. I can access objects in Windows. I can access objects, for example, in Office. I can access objects, and yes, this is not a misprint, the .NET framework. If you have development experience with Visual Studio or out there in the .NET framework, you understand what this means. Yes, I can actually access ADO.NET, reach out from PowerShell, read from a SQL Server database or an Access database, or write to an Access or SQL Server database. I really am unlimited as to what I can do here. Windows management instrumentation, any of the WMI objects that are out there. The bottom line is, if it's an accessible object or a class out there on the Windows environment, platform, whatever you want to call it, you can use these commandlets to access these objects, pass them parameters, call their functionality, do whatever you want to. Okay, now what can I do with these commandlets and these objects? I can perform system administration tasks. I can stop, start, and modify system services. I can mount file systems, work with the contents, identify, stop, start, and modify processes, read and write to event logs. I can query and examine event stores, mount the registry as if it was a file system and modify the keys in it, access, display, modify any of the WMI providers. I can manage Active Directory through the ADSI, which is huge for developers. I can access, control, and modify any members of COM objects. If you're a developer, you just started drooling there. And then I can command .NET objects to perform actions. I can access, control, and modify ActiveX data objects, or ADO. I can read and write to XML and HTML data files. Okay, the bottom line is the sky's the limit. Okay, you can do really whatever you would like to do here. Okay, you can monitor local or remote systems. I've already mentioned registries, servers, Active Directory. You need to think about this thing as a Swiss Army knife for system management. Now, it's going to take a substantial investment of your time and your effort, and it's even going to stretch your knowledge, but I promise you it will amaze you what you can do with PowerShell. So, how do I learn what to do here? The best way to get to know PowerShell is to go to the Microsoft website, do a search for PowerShell, and there's two places. One really cool one is the Windows PowerShell Owner's Manual. You see the link here. It might be easier for you to just simply go out there and do the search on it. And then the Windows PowerShell Toolbox is out there, and this has more cool things than you can look over in a week probably. So put this on your list of to-dos. Okay, move it up close to the top. Go out there and start to read and tinker with PowerShell, and in the next few videos I'm going to introduce it to you and kind of let you see where to get started. Now let's talk about installing PowerShell. First thing you need to understand about PowerShell, or first thing you need to do to install it, is understand, okay, where can I get the thing? It is now shipping with all Windows distributions that go out the door. That's all Windows operating systems. If you don't have it, you can download it free from Microsoft.com. Just go out there and do a search for PowerShell, and you will find the download page, and you can download it. It will run, no problem, on XP Service Pack 2 or later, Windows Server 2003 with Service Pack 1, the Server 2003 Release 2, and the Vista operating system. Keep in mind, very early versions of Vista didn't include PowerShell. Later ones did. So if you have an early distribution of Vista, you may have to go out and download this thing for free. And of course, Windows Server 2008, I think since Beta 3, has included PowerShell in it. Now, do be aware, you will need to have the .NET Framework 2.0 or later installed on the machine to be successful with PowerShell, for it to run. Now, if you don't have that, you can download that from Microsoft.com. But the .NET Framework 2.0 is part of the Windows Update files, and most of these service packs are adding to the servers and to XP are including the .NET 2.0 framework. So you will probably have that. But if you don't, just go out to Microsoft.com and grab that thing. Now, to install this on Server 2008, it's already there, but again, go back to our installation methodology on Server 2008. We come up as bare bones and we have to add it. It is a feature that we're going to add. So let's get out of the PowerPoint here. Let's go out to the desktop and let's add that. So here I am at the desktop. I will go into the Server Manager, and I will go into the Features portion and give it just a second to collect the data, and we will scroll down here and we want to add a feature. And notice in the list of features, if we scroll down just a little bit, it is under Windows PowerShell. Can't look in the P's, it's under Windows PowerShell. And if we click Next, this is telling us that the server might need to be restarted after we do this. We will click Install. It'll take it just a few minutes to install PowerShell, and then once that's there, then we're going to be ready to go. Now, one of the things that I stressed in some of the other videos is you're going to notice there is some serious syntax to learn. You're learning basically a new language here, and there's a number of blogs, a lot of information out there. Just go to Google and do a search on Windows PowerShell, and you will get quite a few things come up. Find a blog that you like, that's at your level, and just start to read this thing on a daily basis. You're not going to learn this in a day or a week. You're going to start to pick up tips and tricks, and just like in any development environment, we actually want to go out there and plagiarize as many pieces of code that you can. Grab some of these things, start to work them in. and slowly build up your repertoire and understanding of PowerShell. Okay, so notice that our installation is proceeding along very nicely. It's telling us now it's collecting installation results. This thing's been running. Notice that ran for maybe a minute. So I will close this out, and so now I have Windows PowerShell on my machine. Now in the next video or two, we're actually going to look at opening PowerShell up and looking at some examples of what we can do with it. Okay, so I'll see you there. Now let's talk about the command guide and actually getting started with PowerShell. Now this is a tough thing to call because it's kind of hard to know exactly to tell you how to get started here. The one thing I will tell you, you need to go out to Microsoft's website and download the Getting Started Guide, the Owner's Manual, and that sort of thing, and start to read through this. But now that I have installed PowerShell as a feature, and I did that in a different video, you'll notice that when I click on the Start menu, I will see it pinned to the Start menu here, Windows PowerShell. If for whatever reason you don't see that, you can go to All Programs and you will see Windows PowerShell there. Okay, and I can just turn it on. Notice when I kick this thing off, it looks like I'm just at a standard DOS prompt, but I'm actually in the PowerShell app that is a DOS prompt application. And what I'm going to do is double click on the title bar and make it full screen so you can see things. Now what I can do here is start to issue commands. And so I know what you're thinking. What commands? Well, there are a number of commandlets. I talked about those in a previous video. And so what we want to do now is start to familiarize ourselves with the commands. So I'm simply going to type get command. You'll notice some of the syntax peculiarities here. So I type get command, hit enter, and here are all my commandlets. Now I'm going to use these commandlets to call other functionalities and invoke other objects and so forth. Let's take a quick look at these. Notice we have add commands for adding things, clear commands, compares, converts, copies, export to export things, for each, okay, and this will give us the ability to loop through things. Format, we can format things as lists, tables, customs. Then our get commands. Usually in scripts we're going to get things, we're going to write things, and we're going to manipulate or modify things. So there's our gets. We can import things, we can invoke things. Notice we can measure things, move. Then we can create new items. Then there's our outs to move things out. We can remove things, set various things, start services, stop things, and then write things out. So you can see that you can see the kind of the general feel of the commandlets, and we use the commandlets to make things happen. Okay, and let me show you just a couple of examples here in these things, and we'll go look at the gets and do some real simple ones here. Let's start, for example, with get process. If I scroll to the bottom of this and just type get process, it's simply going to go out there and grab all the processes running on my machine and let me see what's going on with them. And that's get process. Okay, I can do the same thing with get service, and I have to, and there are all the services on my machine, whether they're stopped or running, and then the description out here. Okay, you say, well, okay, that's okay stuff, big deal. What's the big whoop about that? Big whoop being another one of those technical terms. Well, let's talk about what we can actually do. Notice I'm going to call get, and then I'm going to say WMI object. I can't talk and type at the same time. And I'm going to say return that to me as a list. Now this is going to freak some of you developer types out. Here are the classes that are exposed as WMI objects, or the objects that are exposed in the whole WMI framework, and this is pretty wild. I can now get any one of these objects individually. Okay, so what I will do now is say get WMI object. Did I spell that correctly? Yes, I did. And now I will just type the class name here. Okay, and so I will call, we'll grab this guy right up here, the perf OS processor. So that's going to be win32 underscore perf raw data underscore perf os underscore processor. And if I've spelled everybody correctly, notice it gets processor information. And notice how much information it sent back. It sent back class information, server name, DPCs queued per second, more information than what I ever wanted to know about my processor. But it's kind of showing you the kind of information that you can grab really quickly through this. Now, obviously you see this can get really complicated really quickly. Okay, suffice it to say that I can use these commandlets to access objects in the .NET framework, WMI objects, and on and on and on, anything that's installed on my machine basically, and I can really start to do some cool stuff. I can also run these commands remotely from here. Okay, for example, on get service, if I call get service and then just put a computer name, say the London server, and if I had that machine out there on the network, I could get it. I don't know if this will work. I'll try it. No, I can't see that. But anyway, that's another box out there on the network. But you see where this is headed, okay? So go download some of the guides, start to play with some of these commands, and see what you can do. And in the next video, I'm going to drop some scripts on here and show you some of the functionalities that's possible with this thing. Now I want to take you through a little demo here of exactly how to get PowerShell working and how to kind of introduce yourself to some of the scripts. Now keep in mind, the way we're going to use PowerShell, it depends on what exactly we want to do. If I click on Start and choose PowerShell, I can also go to All Programs and choose PowerShell. Notice that when PowerShell comes up, there's a lot going on here. I can issue any DOS command I can right here from the command prompt. I can even invoke, and I can use the alias II for that. And notice I can type count exe, and oh, I need to put the path. There we go, and I can kick off calculator. Okay, I could even leave the II off of there and do that as well. Okay, but notice I can type, for example, Notepad, and it will open Notepad for me. So this is very, very similar to the DOS prompt. But now let's go a step farther. I want to run some scripts, and so what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize this for now, and I'll show you the easy way to get started with this thing. And it is a lot different. It's a little bit funky compared to what you've ever done, even if you've done programming. And so I want to kind of give you a quick tutorial here. The first thing I'm going to suggest you do is go out to Microsoft's website. Okay, and when you get there, you have to pardon me scrolling. My resolution is an issue here. But I'm going to do a search for, you guessed it, PowerShell. And what I'm going to do when this comes back, well, Bill's protecting me from the ills of the internet. Okay, scripting with PowerShell. I'll take that link and go look around. What I want to get you to is something that's called, notice here's a home page, free books, courseware, toolbox. Here's the PowerShell owner's manual. And if you go out to that, notice they give you all kinds of things. I do want to show you shortcut keys. Now there are shortcut keys, and these are very similar to the ones that you see in the DOS world. You can move up and down through your password history. Page up and page down displays the first page in the command history, the last one. And then, of course, the way we actually get the command history going is if I hit F3. Okay, this will display my previous command. This is the same thing as hitting the up arrow key once. So anyway, you've got the same shortcut keys that you have out there in DOS, so you can go look at those. But you need to read Getting Started with Windows PowerShell. Okay, let me scroll this over. And you need to read Running Windows PowerShell Scripts. Okay, because this is more than just, like they're saying here, just a command console. You can actually execute scripts, and I want to show you, give you a quick tutorial on how to do that. The first thing I did is, and I wish I hadn't closed that, but I went out to the site and I looked up some sample scripts, and I found one. And so what I did is I came out here to my computer, and on the C drive I just created a little folder called scripts, and I created one called SCuts, okay? And notice I just dropped this, copied it into a notepad, and I want to show you just a little bit about what's going on. Anytime you see a $sign, that is a variable in PowerShell, and so we've created a variable called str computer or string computer, and we've set it equal to the period, which means this one, this computer the script's running on. I could have put the NetBIOS name of another computer or an IP address, but then I set up one called column items. And this is kind of like a collection, if you will, in the .NET Framework world. And I'm setting that equal to, and I'm calling the getWMI object, the class name, and I'm putting the namespace that it's in, and then the computer name, which is the computer that we're on, because we're taking whatever's loaded in here and dropping it in here. Then we're doing a for each loop, okay? For every one of the COL items right here, in the object item, we're basically creating object item right here. For each object item in the collection of items, then we're going to write out something, okay? So notice what we've actually done is we're going to read the object item, and when we call it, it's basically built on this class, the Win32 product, and we're calling object item description, so we're reading the description property, the identifying number property, the install date property, and we're just listing those out. Write host is what writes this information out line by line. So what I'm going to do now is execute this script, and I want to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to close this out. I will open my Windows PowerShell environment, and now this is something kind of interesting, okay? I can go to, and this is a gotcha that will drive you nuts. I can go to my scripts folder, and if I type scuts.ps1 and I gave it it's a ps1 extension, notice it says I don't recommend that. I don't see that I can't run it. Now if I do a directory here, right there it is. But this is just one of the quirks of PowerShell, and that is I have to always give it the full directory address. And now my script will run. It'll take it a second to kind of loop through the thing, compile it up, and notice here comes the data. Now what this one is doing is getting every one of the applications on the computer, and let's just look at one here. Notice the caption, Microsoft Office Proof. This is the Spanish version. Here's the identifying number. Here's the installation date, 4/14/2008. The location, here's where it's located. Okay, here's the package cache, here's the vendor, and here's the version number. So if I come on down, Silverlight, okay, Silverlight was loaded 5/8/2008, and so forth. Here's the package cache, where it came from, and so forth. So that's just a real general idea to show you how to, if nothing else, go out and grab scripts off the website, copy them into Notepad, make it a .psi file, pay attention to where you put it on your hard disk, and then go call them out of PowerShell. Okay, very quick, dirty introduction. You got a lot to learn, so get busy.